Storm signal likely tonight. Massive anti-Morsi protests in Egypt today. And Obama meets Mandela's family in South Africa.
Good evening. It's been a year since Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying took office, but already his ministers have admitted that there are things they need to reflect on. That's especially the case given Leung's sinking popularity and ongoing social tensions within Hong Kong. Diane To has our top story tonight.
From the mass occupation of government headquarters by anti-national education protesters, to public mistrust over plans to develop the Northeast New Territories, to a last-minute withdrawal of a government proposal to extend brimming landfills, it's been a tough first year for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Cheung admitted that the new administration has been weak in its political power. He said on top of the day-to-day livelihood issues of the people, there are other deep-rooted problems that need to be resolved.
We also face more structural issues in relation to the system of governance. The issue of election by universal suffrage, executive-legislative relationship, whether party politics are playing an appropriate role. All these issues need to be dealt with one by one. And we also face the issue of how to have stable relationship between Hong Kong and the mainland, the issue of two systems.
Speaking to TVB News today, Cheung believes universal suffrage would help the government earn recognition. He also thinks it would be natural for the chief executive to be a member of a political party, and that in the long term, that's how it should be. Hong Kong law currently bans the chief executive from having party affiliations. With pro-government celebrations held to clash with the anti-establishment July 1st rally tomorrow, Secretary for Development Paul Chan tried to appease those who aren't happy with the government. No matter how many people join the rally tomorrow, he promised the government would humbly listen to the different needs and demands of society. He says it's clear the government faces many challenges ahead, but stood firm that it would not back down or give up. Diane To, TVB News.
There is less than 24 hours before the July 1st rally, but it is not, it is not yet known whether it will go ahead as planned. Organizers say if the storm signal number 8 or the black rainstorm warning is in force as of 12:30 p.m., the rally would be postponed until Sunday, July 7th. The Hong Kong Observatory, meanwhile, says it would consider issuing the strong wind signal number 3 tomorrow morning. Joao De Silva reports.
Tropical storm Rumbia has moved across the Philippines and it's heading close to Hong Kong. This afternoon it was centered about 600 kilometers south-southeast of Dongsha.
It will move at a speed of 28 kilometers per hour across the South China Sea and towards the coastal areas of western Guangdong. There is a chance that Rumbia may intensify into a severe tropical storm later on Monday.
If that is the case, tomorrow's rally and celebrations may have to be postponed. The chairman of the Hong Kong Celebrations Committee, organisers of tomorrow's pro-government rally, said that if the black rainstorm signal is hoisted, their activities will be cancelled. And rally organisers say they may postpone tomorrow's march if the black rainstorm signal or the typhoon signal number 8 are hoisted. Despite the gathering storm, the Occupy Central movement has announced its plans for tomorrow's rally. This year, however, the occupiers have promised to stick to more conventional activities. Those participating in the July 1st rally will surely walk past their stall in Wan Chai, where members of the movement will distribute a wide variety of goodies aimed at raising awareness about their cause. The movement's 3 leaders will also deliver a speech at the end of the rally. They say they have faith in the people of Hong Kong to be peaceful.
Personally, I have confidence and trust on Hong Kong people, And I think the majority of the people participating in tomorrow's rally will be peaceful, non-violent, and will not cause any social disturbance.
Occupy Central organizers deny rumors that they may engage in civil disobedience tomorrow. They admit, however, that other groups may be planning to do so. João da Silva, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, massive anti-government demonstrations are being held in Egypt on the first anniversary of Mohamed Morsi's presidency. The opposition expects millions of people to take part in protests across the country. Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood, meanwhile, has pledged to defend their leader. Egypt at a crossroads exactly 1 year after Mohamed Morsi took power. In Cairo, a massive show of force by his opponents in Tahrir Square ahead of mass demonstrations across the country. The opposition claims 22 million people, about half of the country's voting population, have signed a petition demanding that Morsi step down. This protester called it a correction revolution. We are here to correct the mistakes we made back in 2011 when former leader Hosni Mubarak was ousted. Whoever doesn't come only has themselves to blame, he said. Morsi's opponents also gathered outside the presidential palace and made their voices heard.
You're not welcome here. Please get out.
They are all part of the Tamarod, or rebel coalition, unhappy with the Islamist president, as well as growing social and political unrest in the past year. Top opposition leader Mohamed El Baradei also waded in. For the sake of Egypt, I am asking President Morsi to resign so that we can move forward based on the demands of the revolution, freedom and social justice. The opposition has also blamed the government for failing to address livelihood issues.
The citizen who's been suffering the increase in prices, unemployment, the lack of car gas, all the daily interruptions in the transportation system, the lack of security, the deteriorating economy. These average Egyptian citizens, I think, are the ones who are going to come out in big numbers.
Morsi met with the head of the military yesterday ahead of today's rallies. The army has said it will step in if violence gets out of control, but insists it will respect the will of the people. And this senior Muslim Brotherhood leader cited one of the group's slogans: "Dying for the sake of God is the highest honor. We believe by defending Morsi's legitimacy, we would defend our religion and country," he said. Elsewhere in the region, fresh anti-government protests have erupted in Turkey. Thousands of demonstrators returned to Taksim Square in Istanbul yesterday in a show of solidarity with the Kurds. They demanded justice for a Kurdish protester killed earlier. They were angry with a court decision to free a police officer from custody pending his trial over the protester's death. Authorities later forced the demonstrators out of the square. In Ankara, police used tear gas and water cannons to break up a similar rally held by about 200 people. The unrest in Turkey had largely subsided until yesterday. Demonstrations were originally triggered by plans to redevelop Gezi Park next to Taksim Square, but later turned into an outpouring of discontent against Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his government.
During his two-day trip to South Africa, U.S. President Barack Obama met privately with the family of former South African President Nelson Mandela. As the American president offered his support and praised the anti-apartheid leader's place in history, hundreds of South Africans denounced Obama as the world's top assassin.
Obama arrived at the presidential grounds in Pretoria for a diplomatic meeting with South African President Jacob Zuma. In addition to discussing how the U.S. seeks to increase trade with the continent, Obama described Nelson Mandela's anti-apartheid legacy as leaving an indelible mark on the world.
To see what happened in South Africa, the power of principle and people standing up for what's right, I think continues to shine as a beacon. That the triumph of Nelson Mandela and this nation speaks to something very deep in the human spirit. Well, thank you so much.
President Zuma assured the public that Mandela is receiving the best care.
As you have seen, even in the country and abroad, everyone is wishing Mandela well, a speedy recovery, and the doctors who are attending to him are doing everything, and these are very excellent doctors.
At the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory in Johannesburg, Obama met privately with Mandela's family to offer them words of comfort. Outside the Soweto campus of the University of Johannesburg, police had to fire stun grenades to disperse several hundred protesters where Obama was due to address a town hall meeting with students. The masses demonstrated against U.S. foreign policy and Obama's stance on American drone strikes.
President Obama, since he took office, has been going across the world and transmitting war.
We're asking Obama, why come to South Africa when you have your own problems in your own house?
Back in Pretoria, outside of Mandela's hospital, the masses continue to hold constant vigil for their beloved former president. After visiting the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, former South African Parliament Speaker Max Sisulu assured the masses Mandela is showing signs of improvement.
The doctor saying he is responding well to treatment.
Despite the one protest against Obama, many other South Africans said they were inspired by the U.S. leader's example.
Ecuador's president has admitted U.S. Vice President Joe Biden called and asked him to turn down the asylum request by U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden. Even though Biden politely asked him to reject the asylum bid, Rafael Correa said Ecuador can't even consider Snowden's request until he is on Ecuadorian soil. Much like when Ecuador granted asylum to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, Correa said they'll make their decision on a sovereign basis. When Biden warned him he'd be harboring a fugitive with no passport, Correa reminded him two can play at that game. Correa referred to the case of the Isaias brothers, Roberto and William. The two bankers were charged with embezzlement linked to the 1998 collapse of Filinbanco. They fled to the U.S., and when the Ecuador attempted to extradite them, the U.S. refused. The U.S. believes Snowden is still in Moscow, waiting to see if Ecuador or another country will grant him asylum.
And still ahead in our news tonight, MTR fares go up. Another threat targeting the Next Media. And it's open day at the PLA barracks. And we're back tonight with more local news. MTR fares went up today despite the railway company's profit of over $10 billion last year. Members of the Civic Party held a protest and called for a review of the fare adjustment mechanism. Rachel Lung reports.
Beginning today, MTR fares went up by an average 2.7%. Passengers who use the Octopus card on more than 900 combinations of rides will end up paying more than single journey ticket users. Some of the passengers we talked to said they were disappointed by the fare increase.
I think I feel sad because we're only domestic helper here and the MTR is increasing.
I feel quite disappointed because I think that the MTR should be a socially responsible, and I hope that the MTR can have their rates lower.
Some are considering alternative transportation options.
The fare is very high. That's why for me, I'm just looking for a fare that's very like bus.
Members of the Civic Party protested against the fare hikes at the Tsim Sha Tsui MTR station today. They accused the MTR Corporation of unnecessarily burdening Hong Kong citizens in the face of the high inflation rates.
We oppose this kind of increase in fare because they didn't take into account of the property, the sales of the property as the calculation of the fare price.
They also pointed fingers at the government.
The government's negligence is the most important factors behind the fare increase. Government has the largest share but they refuse to carry out the responsibility and to look into the fare and the price increase.
Kwok criticized the fare adjustment mechanism for being unfair and said he will put forward a motion in LegCo on the issue. The fare increase is expected to bring the MTR Corporation an extra $360 million worth of business, and it's promised to give back $200 million through discounts. That's a third of the concessions it gave last year. Rachel Leung, TVB News.
Stacks of Apple Daily newspapers were set on fire early this morning in Central. This marks the fourth suspected attack targeting the Next Media conglomerate in 2 weeks' time. Police are now looking into all four incidents as one single case, while Next Media has put up to a $1 million reward to hunt down the attackers. Diane To reports.
Ashes were all that was left of the 26,000 odd copies of the newspaper. Firefighters continued to hose down the smouldering paper after the flames were put out in case they lit up again. Plainclothes officers checked the cordoned-off scene for evidence. Police said 2 workers were waiting to distribute the newspapers outside City Hall in Central around midnight when 3 men ran out of a private vehicle and approached them. One man held a knife to the 2 workers, while the other 2 men poured inflammable liquid over the papers, set them ablaze and then fled in the car. Police said the men were masked and dressed in black, and initial investigations show the car had a fake license plate. It's the second suspected attack targeting Next Media in 2 consecutive days, and the 4th in 2 weeks. Early yesterday, a knife was thrown out from a passing vehicle outside the gates of the Next Media building at Cheung Kwan O Industrial Estate. It came after Next Media chairman Jimmy Lai said on a radio show on Friday that he believes the early attacks were carried out by perverted people, targeting him for advocating democratic reform through his newspaper. Nearly 2 weeks ago, a car smashed into the gate of Lai's home on Kaduri Avenue in Kowloon. A knife and axe were found left on the ground afterwards. And on Wednesday, a truck carrying newspapers published by Lai's company was also set on fire in Hong Kong. Through a phone interview today, Lai called the attacks child's play and said he wasn't worried about his personal safety. Police are now looking into all 4 incidents as a linked investigation. Diane To, TVB News.
Next, controversy over the disclosure of finances of certain direct subsidy scheme schools. They're required to make the information public, but TVB News has found that some of them have failed to do so. Evelina Leung tells us more.
In 2010, the audit report found that some schools operating under the direct subsidy scheme had been misusing their funds. At the time, Secretary for Education Michael Soon admitted the government had failed to monitor the school's finances. The Education Bureau has since required all DSS schools to upload information about their finances onto their website. We went through the schools' websites and found that 14 out of 73 schools have still failed to do so. And half of the schools that did reveal their financial situation did not disclose their overall revenue. They simply pointed out how different sources of revenue and expenditure contributed to the total amount. The Hong Kong Direct Subsidy Scheme Schools Council defended the situation. The council chairman, Lam Kin Wah, pointed out that the government and the schools had agreed to the use of percentages to illustrate their financial condition. He believes this is reasonable because each school is different. For example, schools with fewer students generally record a smaller revenue compared with bigger ones. Lam said just revealing the exact amount may not provide a true picture of a school's finances. But the lawmaker representing the education sector, Ip Kin Yun, called on the government to strengthen the monitoring of these schools. He said failure to do so means authorities are simply not doing their job. Evelina Leung, TVB News.
All right, Tony, over to you for some sports today.
That's right, and we still got lots of great action on the grassy courts of Wimbledon to talk about. And top seeds Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams look unstoppable as Wimbledon enters its 2nd week. Still, British tennis fans had something to cheer about as Laura Robson reached the last 16 of the tournament. Would she or wouldn't she make it to the second week of Wimbledon? That was the question fans were asking of Laura Robson, but they needn't have worried as she became the first British woman since 1998 to reach the last 16 of the tournament after beating Marina Erakovic by 2-1. On centre court, it was business as usual for Serena Williams, who took apart Japan's Kimiko Date-Krum 6-2, 6-love for her 600th career win. China's Li Na is still in with a shout. She recovered from losing the first set against Klara Zakopalova to win the next two and reach the last 16. In the men's draw, world number one Novak Djokovic made just 3 unforced errors on his way to a straight sets win over France's Jeremy Chardy.
Yeah, it was a fantastic match. I felt great from the start to the end, and I had that super focus, and tried to be out there every point and not allow him to come back to the match or to have any chance.
Fourth seed David Ferrer, on the other hand, had a 5-set tussle with Alexander Dolgopolov. The Spaniard emerged from the topsy-turvy match after more than 3 hours, winning 6-7, 7-6, 2-6, 6-1, 6-2. Well, riders of the Tour de France know to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared them for the mayhem that unfolded during the first stage of the Tour, which is celebrating its 100th edition. Riders had already been confused about where the finish line was going to be after a bus became stuck on the road, and once that was sorted, 2 riders collided near the finish, setting off a chain of spills that went throughout the peloton like a bowling ball. It was like a demolition derby on 2 wheels. And keeping his head down amid the chaos, Germany's Marcel Kittel sprinted for the win. He claimed the first yellow jersey of the Tour. Riders still have 20 more stages and over 3,000 kilometres of racing before the finish in Paris in late July. Well, if that wasn't enough excitement for you, how about some of this? Cliff diving at a Red Bull event in Portugal. Around 1,300 spectators gathered in boats to watch as competitors dive directly off a cliff face. And Britain's Gary Hunt emerged victorious with a total of 481.05 points. The win means he now tops the overall standings, going into the next stage of the series in Italy.
And finally, tons of excitement coming out of the Shek Kong barracks of the People's Liberation Army's local garrison. The venue was open to the public in celebration of the 16th anniversary of the handover. The open day events included the raising of the national flag, a military band performance, and anti-terrorism drills. The public got a glimpse of different kinds of weapons as well. Many brought along their children, and many more visitors from the mainland came. The PLA says it hopes the open day could allow people to gain a better understanding of their military forces. And that's a wrap of our news. Thanks for joining us, and good evening.
Have a very good night.
Calls for the chief executive to step down have been non-stop through CY Leung's first year in office. But the voice of discontent and divisiveness that makes Hong Kong hard to govern began 10 years ago at the July 1st march. Details on the Per Report, Monday night at 7.
Hello everyone. It was mainly fine and very hot today. At 5 p.m., Tropical Storm Rumbia was centered about 540 kilometers south-southeast of Don Sha. Today's temperatures ranged from 27.9 to 33 degrees, and the current temperature is 29.7 degrees Celsius. So Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? Mainly cloudy, a few squally showers during the day tomorrow. Showers will be more frequent later. Temperatures will range from 27 to 31 degrees. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 15 to 80 and the pollution level will range from low to high. The maximum UV index forecast for tomorrow will be about 9. Now, here's the latest global weather update. Cloudy in Shanghai and Taipei. Showers in Guangzhou and Macau. Rain in Beijing, cloudy in Seoul. Rain in Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh City, and Manila. Thunderstorms in Singapore, rain in Jakarta. Showers in Karachi, rain in Mumbai. Showers in Cairo, sunny intervals in Nairobi. Rain in Brisbane, showers in Sydney and Melbourne. Showers in Toronto and New York. Sunny in Vancouver, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Sunny in Paris, cloudy in Frankfurt. And that's the weather. Have a great evening.